this country as a refugee, to me, America was a beacon of hope. I arrived here when I was 12 years old. I could have never imagined the day would come when we were staring down at this kind of creeping authoritarianism in the United States of America.
Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America.
So the vice president of the United States went on a podcast this weekend. It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't a DOG briefing, a podcast, and said Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. Definitely. It didn't say allegedly, not we're looking into it. Definitely.
About Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz.
Exactly.
And obviously, Ilhan Omar, the president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? There's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community. So do I know that Ilhan Omar was aware that the Quality Leering Center was defrauding the American people? I'm not certain of it, but we at least need to investigate it, because if people can commit wrongdoing without even the fear that they're going to be found out, that's a fundamental problem. So I'm worried about the immigration fraud. I'm also worried about what did Ilhan Omar know about what was happening in the Somali community, and why was nobody looking into it until, frankly, Donald Trump came along.
And here's what got me. In the same breath, in the same sentence, basically, he then says, we're trying to figure out what the legal remedies are. How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you build a case? You just said she definitely did it, but now you're trying to figure out how to build a case. I'm a little confused. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This is the first time I'm going to be talking about on this channel, but let's talk about it. So this was on the Benny Johnson show. I'll put the link in the description box below for you guys to check out the entire interview. JD Vance, who is now heading up Trump's anti-fraud task force, sat down and drops this. He says the White House believes Omar committed immigration fraud. He said he personally spoken to Stephen Miller about it. Then he goes further saying that Omar has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somali community. Now that last part seems to be likely to be true, because that connects to the feeding our future scandal, the daycare fraud, the whole Minnesota ecosystem we've been covering on this channel. So that part definitely has teeth. But the problem is with the immigration fraud claim, he presented it like it's settled. And I understand a lot of people do believe it actually happened, but let's try to go through the evidence here. I mean, if it was pretty obvious, it should be pretty quick to figure out, okay, this person did it. Let's prosecute him. Let's hold him accountable, because there is stuff to this evidence. But also it's important to think critically about what's happening. Is this based on politics? Is it based on legitimate claims of immigration fraud, or they're just some nonsense going back and forth? So let's look at the receipts. Okay, so here's the timeline. I want you to pay attention because the dates matter. 2022, Ilhan Omar enters a faith-based religious marriage with Ahmad Hirsi, not a legal marriage. They have 2 kids together. 2009, while with Hirsi, she legally marries a different Ahmad Noor Saeed Emi. This is a civil ceremony in Minnesota. This is the man that critics allege is her brother. Here's where it gets messy. Her and Hirsi reportedly split around 2008, but got back together in 2012. But she's still legally married to Elmi at this point. She didn't divorce Elmi until 2017. Then she got legally married to Hirsi in 2018. Then divorced Hirsi again, reportedly having an affair with her current husband, Tim Mynett, who she married in 2020. So right off the bat, this is a complicated situation, but complications aren't crimes. So what is the actual evidence that Elmi is her brother? Here's what we know. The Star Tribune, her hometown paper, did an investigation in 2019. They went through the marriage records, business licenses, university records, databases, and what did they find? They said they could neither confirm or deny that Elmi is her sibling. The records out of Somalia aren't as reliable enough to prove it one way or another. But here's the stuff that does raise eyebrows. In 2014 and 2015, Omar filed federal taxes jointly with Hersey, the man that she was living with, while she was legally married to Elmi. That's a discrepancy. That's on paper. The Minnesota Campaign Finance Board flagged it. She used campaign funds to pay a lawyer to fix her filings. That's documented. The Washington Examiner found dozens of inconsistencies in her marriage documents. And in January of this year, Congresswoman Nancy Mace actually tried to subpoena Omar's immigration records through the House Oversight Committee. You know what happened? Both parties, Democrat and Republicans, blocked it. Mace said, I'm paraphrasing here, Washington does what it always does, protects its own. And right there, that's the whole story. Now, here's the thing. Now, the immigration stuff is always going to be the more, I guess, salacious headlines that's going to be red meat for the Republicans, and the Democrats going to try to defend it. But to me, the financial situation is way more suspicious and way more provable than the immigration fraud. Unless you're able to get the DNA from Omar and her brother, because at this point, unless you get the DNA from Omar and the person that's supposed to be her brother, if you can't get that legally, there's no way to truly know, because Somali's records obviously are not the most reliable. But let's talk about the financial situation, because that is definitely some problems there. 2023, her financial disclosure shows that her husband, Tim Mynett's ownership stakes in two companies, that winery and that venture capital firm called Rose Lake Capital, was worth a combined $51,000. But by the end of 2024, those same stakes were reported up to $30 million. That's a 3,500% increase in just 1 year. So when you look at Rose Lake Capital and you look at the winery, both were being sued by investors claiming that they've been defrauded. Those lawsuits got settled, and suddenly both of those companies are worth millions of dollars. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Ilhan Omar's campaign paid Tim Mynett's consulting firm about $3 million during the 2020 election cycle. That was 56% of her entire campaign spending. But then Omar said it herself in February that she's not a millionaire. Called it a right-wing disinformation campaign.
Another day, another lying headline about millions of dollars that apparently I have. So if you look at this document, you could see it says assets and unearned income. If you look at the asset for 1 million to 5 million, the income is 5 to 15,000. And if you look at the asset for 5 million to 25 million, it says none right there. Learn to read before you post misleading shit. Bye.
But her own financial disclosure, the one that she filed, says otherwise. So there's definitely a lot of smoke there that they definitely need to dive into. And here's what I really want to get at, because you can lay out all the evidence you want, either immigration or the financial situations. But does it really matter? Think about the situation with Letitia James, New York Attorney General.
So we are a nation built on the rule of law, on checks and balances, and on the fundamental idea that power belongs to the people, not to one person, not to one party, and not to those who believe that they are above the law. But right now, those principles are being tested. Our institutions are being tested. And so let me be clear. The law matters in this country. And we have challenged illegal federal actions in court. And we, Democratic attorneys general, have stood up to those who think that they can use fear and division to control our communities.
The Trump administration went after her for mortgage fraud, and they're still trying to do so, saying that she misrepresented a property in Virginia to get better loan terms. They got an indictment, then the judge threw it out because the prosecutor was improperly appointed. They tried again, the grand jury said no. 2 grand juries refused to indict. And career prosecutors who originally looked at this case said the evidence wasn't there, that the financial benefit was like $800. But for me, I believe that she did commit those crimes, especially if you check out a lot of the evidence. I suggest to you, if you're interested in looking at this case with Letitia James, to go on the website White Collar Fraud. They break down exactly all the issues that has been documented that show that she committed some kind of fraud. But when you look at the national view, Republicans versus Democrats, people on both sides looked at it and saw what they wanted to see. One side said that she's guilty and being protected. The other side said that it is political revenge. Nobody changed their minds. Everything is so partisan now that when something does come up, half the country won't take it seriously no matter what. Same energy with Omar. You show a Democrat voter these financial discrepancies and they'll just say it's an attack from the conservatives. You show a Republican voter and they'll say that she should have been deported yesterday. Nobody's looking at the actual evidence anymore. It's just teams. But here's the thing. When it's a smaller politician, it seems like justice kind of works sometimes. And the reason I'm talking about this is with case in point, Sheila McCormick, Florida Congresswoman, a couple days as Vance was talking about Omar, the House Ethics Committee found that she was guilty of 25 violations. 25 out of the 27 they brought. What did she do? She allegedly took $5 million from FEMA overpayments that went to her family's healthcare company and funneled it into her 2022 congressional campaign. Bought herself a diamond ring from Tiffany's, a Tesla, designer clothes, told voters that the campaign was self-funded. It wasn't. It was funded with COVID disaster relief money. The Ethics Committee reviewed 33,000 documents, did 28 witness interviews, a 2-year investigation. Now she's facing potential expulsion from Congress and separate federal criminal charges. So it can happen. Justice can work. But notice something. Most people had never heard of Sheila McCormick. She doesn't have a national profile. She doesn't have the media ecosystem protecting her. Once you really get famous, once you get really powerful, it becomes almost impossible to take you down. That's just the reality. So where does that leave us with Omar? Vance said that she definitely did it, but then his own words will tell you that they don't have a case yet. The marriage discrepancies are real. The financial explosion is extremely suspicious, but until someone actually files charges and present the evidence in a courtroom, not on a podcast, is just talk. And the question I want to leave with you is this. If the Vice President of the United States saying that a sitting Congresswoman definitely committed fraud and nothing happens, what does that tell you about the system actually working? Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.